Welcome to Change the Narrative. I'm your host, JD Fuller.
I'm Susie Younger,
an African-American licensed psychotherapist.
I'm also a licensed therapist.
We talk about the isms. We talk about the phobias, anything that marginalizes and oppresses.
As a white woman, I ask the questions white people are too afraid to ask.
Everything we are not and everything we are is because of fear.
Through a mental health lens, Susie and I will have difficult conversations with celebrity guests, political activists, and everyone in between.
Our mind will tell us whatever we want to believe, but the truth lives in the body, and that's where change occurs.
Are you ready to change the narrative?
This is going to be so much fun today. We have on the president of the Queen of Shade, the Queen of Shade herself, a true pioneer. She's a performer. She calls herself an intellectual entertainer, which we want to hear about, a social media influencer and guru, a mentor, a content creator, a brand ambassador, a singer and songwriter. Oh, and if that isn't enough, she's a shaman, oracle, prophet, and excuse the pun, I'm seriously having an out-of-body experience. She's about to tell us and our audience all about everything that she finds purpose with on her Cybergirl podcast. We can't wade into her magical powers. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that welcome. That's like weird to me as you're reading. I'm like, who is this? Who is this? Like she started to read and I'm like, okay, somebody else coming on today?
It's all you.
That's great. So it sounds like mentoring has had a place in your life. Who was the biggest? Yeah.
You know what? Mentoring changed my career.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you.
Yes.
Go ahead, go for it.
Mentoring changed the trajectory of my career. And I want to say in 2008, I first took to YouTube and I started singing. It was a decision. It was my first time coming to the public that way. I started doing covers. I sang everybody. I'm a countertenor. So when we talk about my music and we hear that, I'm a countertenor. So that means I'm a mezzo-soprano. I've been a mezzo-soprano since I was a little boy. And it never changed. Puberty happened, it never changed. So YouTube was how I first got out there. And it was so crazy because I never went viral or anything, but I always met the right people. Like the right people were always watching me. So then one thing led to another. And then I met production and studio people. And then I started to hop from YouTube to other platforms. And it just so happens that Instagram was the platform for me. That's the one that went the biggest. But I said all of that to say this. Pre-COVID, pre-corona, it was all about my music. It was all about, I was still doing the Queen of Shade inspiration videos, but it was still about marketing the music. Corona hit, and for a person like we were just speaking before we started recording, I'm the type of person where I don't go out much. I like it that way. So Corona hit, and then I really couldn't go out. So it was like, okay, how are we gonna make money now? So then one day it was just somebody said to me, somebody was like, I want to pay you to talk to me. I want to pay you for your guidance and your wisdom and your experience. And that's how it got started. And mentoring kept my business afloat the whole pandemic. And it launched my business in a new way. I gained more followers. It was crazy. Mentoring is now, it's my bread and butter. I still do I'm an avid songwriter. It only takes me about 15 minutes to write a song. So I can write them and put them out. We'll talk about this, but I am a workaholic.
Okay,
so
we're gonna get into it.
Mass production is what I do.
So just in terms of, you said two things there, and I don't want to miss either one of them.
Right.
This mentor piece, was it all of your life or just specifically during that period of time that it really took you to the next level?
It was literally during that period of time. Okay. Because all of my life, I was having I call them life lessons, the growing pains, the upsets, the letdowns, the emotional roller coaster. I was having all of that experience so that I could get the wisdom. Okay. So then during the pandemic, it was like, it was just me going like, regaling what I had been through. I've been through a lot. We'll get into it. I've been through a lot. And then it was the first time that the light bulb ever went on for me and said, you could use this. Like I was using it in my music. Like my music sometimes can be very poignant and sad because like I'm talking about what I've gone through and I usually set it to danceable beats, but no, like when I really focused my trajectory on mentoring, blossomed. Queen of Shade got better, everything got better.
So let's go back a little bit and tell us
Yeah.
who you were 15 years ago versus who you are today.
15 years ago, my name was Kali Payton.
Okay.
Kali Payton was a young kid from the inner city, Northern Philadelphia, Northern Philadelphia, who was given the opportunity to move to the suburbs for educational purposes with his grandmother, who was, and well, she's retired now. She was an educator. She was a teacher. So you would think, oh, okay, well, that's good. But no, my family was a very poor family. All of us were from Northern Philadelphia. So when my grandmother moved, it kind of became a situation where everybody depended on her anyway. She was the matriarch. I was a child at that time, but we literally were crammed 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. I slept on the floor from 7th grade to 12th grade. And it wasn't easy in the living room. It wasn't easy, but today we'll get into that. I don't want to get ahead of you, but today that has made me who I am, and I'm so thankful for it. But what I'm saying is there have been obstacles. 15 years ago, that was even earlier. But I want to say that was what I was carrying.
Yeah,
when I entered into the 15-year period, because I've had therapy for about 14 years. So
don't get ahead of us. Don't get ahead of us.
I want to get ahead. So, okay. So 15 years ago, my name was Kali Payton, and I was trying to figure out a way to manage my mental health and still have my career in entertainment. Okay. Because before that, I was unsuccessful with the balance. I could not balance them. So I had a lot of ideas. One thing about me, I'm really good at writing. I wrote everything down that I wanted to do, but I had no money and no way to really execute those things. So at that time, I was literally getting ready to start therapy. My grandmother, I came to live with my grandmother because I had lost another job, mental illness. I had lost another job. I had lost another apartment. But I had been YouTubing and I had a little bit of a presence, and I didn't want to lose that presence. It was the first time I'd ever had people, as I say, accept me for me, being part of the LGBT community, being a cross-dresser, not transgendered, but a transvestite, being a cross-dresser, being effeminate. It was the first time I'd ever had a group of people, a body of people say that's okay. Yeah. So I started then. I'm like that. It happened first. And then my magical mind was like, well, you need a brand and you got to do this. And nobody had to tell me how to do those things. But 15 years ago, I was starting that. So I got a new name. I became Bjorn Dufault. And then I started, I launched 2 LLCs. That's what I did. Now, mind you, never having a business ever before in my life. Not knowing, but did a lot of reading and a lot of research. I launched 2 LLCs. So
okay, I'm gonna stop you there. I'm gonna stop you there because I want to ask you about this. Going to a new school. Yeah. So there's this, mythology, I call it, in the education community that believes if you take the child out of the inner city and pluck them into an environment that's receiving, unfortunately, a higher level of education just because of where the location is, that all the child's problems will disappear. And clearly what you're saying is that is not true. And I've been saying that for many years, that children of color, children from impoverished communities that are just plucked out to go to wealthy environments to go to school, the school has no idea the amount of complications that creates in the child's life. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's an important note to hit.
Yeah. what that experience gave me. Now, mind you, we're talking a long time ago because literally I'm 39. So, but that experience, you are so right. As a child, being plucked from the inner city, I want to stay there for a second. The inner city was very hard on me. I was beat up every day. I was chased home. I was bullied for being gay at a very young age, very early age, being effeminate. So it was not easy. So I jumped at the idea of leaving the hood and being placed in a better environment, only to find out that just because I was being placed in an environment did not mean that my troubles would go away. Did not mean that and that was the thing, though I was being educated, all of the adults around me were still who they were in the inner city, if you understand what I'm saying. They were still them. I was receiving the education, but at the same time, you are right, my home life was hell. And then what my God, I'm going to go there. So I had this one family member, because what happens is my mother, when I was really young, my grandmother took us from my mother. I'm the oldest of 4 children. My mother did drugs. Now I'm 39. My mother did drugs for 25 years of my life, had mental illness. My father, mental illness, never really was there. My mother was 17 when she had me. My father was 28. I always say this on my podcast, and every chance that I get, that's their crime. I'm not concerned, but it is statutory rape. But anyway, it just, the amount of baggage, I will say, that I was internalizing and carrying, no one knew.
Right.
I looked like I was adjusting to the environment. I looked like I was getting on with my life, but I wasn't.
It's perfectly said. Perfectly said. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to add to that, on the heels of that, this seems incredibly timely. What was and I know it's hard to pick one or a couple, but what was the most challenging part of your story that you believe others can benefit from hearing the most? You've already said so much that's beneficial, but if you had to take one theme and put it out there, what would you say?
This is raw. It's raw.
Give it to us.
Even when you come from a broken family, you can still make something out of your life. And sometimes, most of the times, in order to do that, you're going to have to leave a lot of people behind. I don't have a relationship, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I want everyone to know this. Everyone thinks, oh, everything is just amazing in his life. No, I don't have a relationship with anybody in my family except my grandmother and my one nephew. I don't talk to my siblings, and we're only 2 years apart. I don't have a relationship with any of my siblings. My mother is now in an assisted living facility for having a stroke. That stroke saved her life, but I did not know her. So we don't have a relationship. I love talking about these things. I don't know what it is. My father, we don't have a relationship. My uncles and aunts, we do not have a relationship. What I am trying to illustrate is that sometimes, especially in us as Black people's lives, to your new life is going to cost you your old one. That's what I want people to understand. Don't be afraid to pay that price. You got to get out there, whether it is entertainment, whether it is education, whether it is, like I said, well, sports and all that same thing, entertainment, but whether it's education or sports, because, you know, there are only a couple of things Black people can do.
God forbid. God forbid.
It's education or entertainment. So in this country, which is sad, but whichever one it is, you're going to have to leave a lot of people behind. You can't take a lot of people with you.
And you know, in our community, the idea of not staying connected to relatives is a crime.
Wait a minute, it's a sacrilege. Like literally
sacrilege.
It is even the ridicule that I receive today, when they tell me I'm full of myself, I'm self-absorbed because I don't come around, or I don't call, or I think I'm hot shit. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not gonna edit that out. But you know, I think I'm hot shit, and I'm just like, I'm sitting on the other side of 14 years of therapy, realizing that the buttons, all my triggers were installed by my family. So I'm sitting here with that knowledge. They don't know that. They've never been therapized.
Wait, stay there 1 second, because I say this once, I say it 1,000 times in therapy with my clients. You are in therapy.
Yep.
Your community is not.
It's not.
Your change affects their change, but don't expect them to know what you know, because
yeah, and you can't expect you from them.
Poignant. The sacrilege. I want to stay there for a second.
Yes.
God forbid you realize a family member is not healthy for you, and you create a boundary. You become a pseudo enemy to the family members who see what's wrong in you, that you have found what's healthy for you in that boundary.
It's Plato's allegory of the cave. I love that allegory. I'm going to sum it up really quickly. Basically, it's a family of people that are chained inside a cave. They can only see the wall. The fire is behind them. They see images of trees, images of animals, images of what's outside. One of the younger sons breaks free, runs outside of the cave, realizes, I'm just summing it up, realizes that there are real trees, there's a real sky, there's a real sun, there's real birds, real animals, goes back, frees his family. They tell him, no, we belong in this cave and you belong in here with me. And then he says, but no, I belong outside. There's so much more and I want to take you with me. And then they try to kill him and tell him, don't ever come back.
That's deep.
That's Plato's allegory of the cave. You are no longer welcome. Why? I'm just going to say this for entertainment. We see it in entertainment. When rappers and musicians and people get out of the hood, they can't go back. They can't go back. They're not able to go back. And that's what people don't understand. So they're on borrowed time if they don't, save their money and do what they have to do, because you're no longer one of us. You're no longer one of us. And I experience that in my family every day.
Yeah, it's painful. And I'm so sorry that, we haven't figured out that sometimes mental health means more than blood relationships.
I have a high pain tolerance. It's okay.
Doesn't mean you should suffer. Beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
So, you said that you have been motivated again and again, and you have been motivated to lean into your talent as a creator.
Yeah.
And you've talked about it a little bit. Can you add anything that was the bridge that facilitated that for you?
Yes. Oh boy, I love this. I like being able to tell. Like, telling is what heals me, what frees me. Talking about it is what really sets me free. In 2001, I was medically withdrawn from my university. I went to a small university in upstate Pennsylvania by the name of Clarion University. I was there in 2000. I turned 18 because my birthday's in September. So I stepped on the campus at 17, turned 18 on the campus. I was diagnosed bipolar type 1, PTSD, and acute anxiety disorder my second year of college. I had to be medically withdrawn. When I went into the hospital, it was just me. My family made the 7-hour journey, my grandmother, to see me, but she couldn't take me home with her. I had to go into the hospital. I had to be, cared for. And I remember crying and asking her not to leave me. And I remember her saying, this is something I can't help you with. This is something you have to do. So I remember crying a lot in that hospital because my life had just been turned upside down. I slept on a damn floor from 7th grade to 12th grade to get to college, only to get to college and be put out. And that just, it mortified and devastated me. I cried so much in that hospital. But what I also did in that hospital to soothe myself was I would sing. I would sing out loud. And I didn't care who was listening. I didn't care who wanted me to stop. I would just sing, 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 to the point where all of the staff would say to me, the staff would cry because they would say, you have such a beautiful voice. That voice is not meant for you not to use it. And when I left that hospital, coming home to a broken family again, that whole apartment situation that I ran from, and retaking my position on that floor in the living room. I cried for 7 months straight. My grandmother sat on the balcony with me. I cried for 7 months straight. I couldn't believe I was back there. But what happened was, I took what they said to me in the hospital, and then my grandmother said, you know, you're very talented. But for me, I didn't want to be a talent. I saw my father, mental illness, all over the place, musician. He plays 95 instruments. Never could be in my life, but he plays 95 instruments. That's some kind of discipline, but you couldn't be in my life. But you were disciplined enough to learn 95 instruments.
Damn.
And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to follow in his footsteps. Every time he did come around, he was always asking me to sing. He was always telling me that I would be a star. He was always telling me that, oh, I'm just waiting to see you on television. And I hated him for it. And I did not want to do it. But when I was in that hospital, I was desperate. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with my life. And retaking my position on that floor with my younger siblings, because I was 18 at that time, and we're all 2 years apart. They're all looking at me, and there's also this stigma of, you came home because you're crazy, and they're looking at me like, what happened? And I can't tell them what happened. I'm just crying all over the place. And excuse me, I'm just a mess. Something clicked inside of me. Something was like, in case of emergencies, break the glass.
I love that.
Break the glass. You know you can sing. I've been singing. My voice has never changed. I hit puberty. My voice, I remember, but this is crazy. I remember praying to the divine, because religion was and that was another thing. Religion was huge in my home. That destroyed me. I am not religious today, and not at all. So that destroyed me as well. But I remember literally having the same voice all of my life, but praying at that time. I was 10, walking down a suburban street by myself, saying, divine, please don't ever let my voice change. It's so beautiful and it soothes me. It helps me. I like it. I need it. Don't let it change. And I kid you not, I'm 39 years old today and my voice never changed. But I went to entertainment as my last stop. It was my last stop, because I remember trying to get back into the university, and they said, no, you only came out a year ago. You need to really get some therapy and get time. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I need to get out of where I am. So I need to get back here. And they're like, no, you can't handle this. So it was a last resort. This divine said to me, you can always sing and do entertainment. And right before I was walking around, and that was the crazy thing. I was one of those people where I just have to open up a little bit about that experience, being manic for 5 months on that university campus and no one knowing, because I was always a happy-go-lucky person. I was always in high spirits. So I'm not type 2 bipolar disorder, which is depression. I got all the energy, all the jovial highs. I got all of that. So I just looked like I was flying. I was flying just without any landing gear. So a crash was inevitable, but that decision to go into entertainment was kind of made for me. It was like, you better do this.
But you talk about bipolar 1, there is some depression. You didn't ever experience it, or you?
Only when I came home.
Okay. That's when,
only when I came home, only when I was around people that did not edify me, uplift me, support me, believe in me. So I didn't experience those depressions when I moved away from my family.
So, I love this. I love how often you say 14 years of therapy. I love it. I think it's great. It's so important. Normalize it. I hate that it's still a stigma in our community. I hate that mental health issues that one's crazy when it has nothing to do with crazy. Most people in the country, I don't know anybody who doesn't have mental health challenges. I don't know anyone.
Or have the need to just check it every now and then.
Absolutely. So the idea that our community has to feel so stigmatized by it when we deal with white supremacy and racism every day and PTSD, how could we not have some consequences and yet we still, persevere?
Yeah.
So I love that you say that and you work to remove the stigma, because we really have to do that. We are a collective community and we have to do it together. So having said all of that, what's the one thing you would say to convince others to engage in this self-exploration of therapy? What would you say?
To be honest, look at me. Look at me. I am very open about everything I've experienced dealing with mental illness. It's all on my podcast. I have 235 30-minute episodes. I have poured my heart out. And then I let people know that the only reason why you have a Queen of Shade today is because my psychiatrist suggested I use my talent to heal myself and turn my camera on while doing it.
That's great.
Therapy is the only reason I am sitting here. Therapy is the only reason I am now a successful working entertainer. It's the only reason.
As therapists, we can't say it enough. I mean, we are constantly saying every opportunity we get. So it's wonderful when people in other, situations, professions, share their experience. So I much respect for that. Look, we can't get through this conversation without talking about how Dave Chappelle has been given so much power in the medium. Now, I have my opinions, but I absolutely want to hear yours.
Right. Do you know, I honestly keep myself so busy that I didn't even know what was going on with Dave Chappelle. And I'm always working. Like I said, I'm a workaholic. It's my addiction. So when I heard what he said, I understand a comedian. I understand that you want to reflect the times, but his jokes, ill-timed. Ill-timed.
I think it's a great way of putting it.
Ill-timed. And that was the thing. Right now, with so many transgender women being murdered, women of color. Like it just was, it was ill-timed. Like literally, that's what comes to my mind. Like it's like, okay, you might have been able to say that, but you flopped and it failed because you shouldn't have said that immediately. You should have waited. If you were going to do that, wait till the community is thriving. Wait till they have their rights. We have our rights, and But honestly, after the DaBaby debacle, he should have left that alone. After the DaBaby debacle, the singer, DaBaby, the rapper, DaBaby.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
After that debacle, Dave Chappelle should have rewrote his entire show.
Let me say a couple of things that are controversial because, we had this panel last night, so it's very fresh in my mind.
Okay.
As adults, we can feel two ways. That's actually healthy to recognize that you feel two ways. I thought his special was funny, and I feel the pain for my trans brothers and sisters who felt stigmatized and emotional pain as a result of some of the jokes that he used. I will always support my community. I have a couple other things that I think are important to note, one of which is he's a Black comedian.
Yeah.
And then the white, gay, and trans community jumps up and they are horrified. And I can't help but add in the racial issue because of the fact that when so many trans women of color were being killed, I didn't see the outrage in the white gay community.
I didn't see anything.
I didn't see people shutting stuff down and celebrities saying, I stand with my, it's pretty quiet, right?
Yep.
So now a Black comedian gets up and says some offensive things, which I will never condone because it hurt my people.
Right.
But I think we have to acknowledge who runs Netflix, who made the outrage, who's upset, who's pointing at this guy who's now being canceled, who's giving him all this power to speak for all Black men. Yes, there is an issue with our trans women of color being vilified, being targeted. It's horrifying. It's not okay. Was it good timing? No, ill timing is the best word that I've heard. But I cannot take off the lens of white supremacy and how the white gay community manages to empower itself when it finds itself offended, but not on behalf of the people who are targeted the most, which are Black people and trans women of color.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And you said it best. His remarks, like they were off-color remarks. But my thing is, let it had been Colin Farrell. I hate to say names, but I'm just saying, let it had been a white comedian. The backlash would have never occurred like that. His rep would have issued a statement, a public apology, and that would have been it. We would have been on to get the next news segment. It wouldn't have been what it was. And my thing is, I'm not trying to call up his past, but we all know that Dave Chappelle took a very long hiatus because of mental health. We all know that. So with him trying to get his career back on track, and for him to be so vehemently attacked, it's just, okay, this is how I can say it. He didn't help the situation.
Okay, I feel that.
Okay.
No, I feel that.
Okay. Yeah. He didn't help himself out.
Look, and I'll say it again. If my trans brothers and sisters are hurting, I'm hurting.
Right.
So there is no divide in that.
Right.
And particularly my trans brothers and sisters of color. I will always have your back. When I post after another person gets killed, I say, where's all the white gay voices? Why are we all in an uproar? Why isn't this person pasted all over the news? Why aren't, things shutting down like they do whenever a person who is not of color has a feeling that is hurt? Why is that not the same? And until that happens, I'm just going to keep saying it because I think it's important to be heard. I mean, one of the things that happens is in the LGBTQ plus community, particularly in communities of color, we run to the white gay community for housing because our community has not been well versed in what it means to have this as a variable. We are in our community. We are part of your families.
Basically, our community doesn't accept this.
They weren't taught to accept it. And we go back in history, it was the white Christians who told our community not to accept it. And our community held on to it because that's what we do to try to survive. So there's a history and a legacy that I will not get erased. I will not let get erased, that I will not go with the narrative that our community does not accept us. I think our community doesn't have the knowledge and the education to know that we are members of their community. We didn't choose this. This is who we are.
Right. That's the thing. And what you just said right there, I spend so much time pushing that narrative. I was born this way. I was born this way. Look how effortlessly I do it.
Yeah. Flawless.
It is who I am. It is. It's not, it's not some prefabrication. Like, this is who I am.
Right.
I'm one of the weird ones. I'm a transvestite, so I enjoy going out, regular, and then I enjoy this. I enjoy, like, for me, I'm the have your cake and eat it too guy, because I get to do both. And for me, I mean, there are a lot of, I must say too, especially to my transgender women of color, I definitely feel their pain because they're not like me. They choose to be women. They are women. They're being, well, here's how I say it. They choose to be their authentic selves.
Yeah.
So they show up every single day as that. Whereas if I'm walking down the street and there's a group of men coming towards me, I snatch my wig and my makeup off and walk past.
Wow.
Now, I usually am still singled out because I'm effeminate, but I have more of a chance to survive than they do.
Yes.
And that's not good.
That's not okay. It'll never be okay. And this is not, but this is, and people of color, Black people particularly, are experiencing a genocide in this country, and it's still too quiet for me.
It's so horrible.
And the most targeted.
My grandmother and I talk about it all day, like every day. It's so horrible.
And trans women of color happen to be one of the ones who are targeted the most, and it'll never be okay with me.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears. Oh, go ahead. You want to add something else?
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to add real quickly. I have to do this because our fearless leader, T.S. Madison, was on the Breakfast Club a couple of days ago, and she said something that I applauded her for. She said the Black community needs to understand that we are queer or trans or gay and Black. Like, we are both. You don't get a chance. You don't get the option to just support our Blackness. You have to also support our queerness. So I just wanted to put that into the record because I want her to know that she really touched me when she said that. And it was so true. It was so true. Like, that was the thing. Like, even when the Black Lives Matter movement happened, I was on my podcast screaming up a storm because I'm like, I don't want to march side by side with you in Black Lives Matter and then have to watch my back because after Black Lives Matter is over, you're bashing me in the head because I'm gay. I was upset about the whole thing. I'm like, and I kept saying, if there's a fight between us and any other race, especially, Caucasians, they're not gonna care that you are that you're straight and I'm gay. They're gonna see color and they're gonna kill us both.
That's the part. That's the part right there. We need to emphasize. In the end, it's race first. I don't care what anybody says. It's race first. And that's what we have to remember as a community and fight for as a community. And the one thing I will say about this, Dave Chappelle thing is it became about race because I think primarily he's talking to the white gay dominant culture community. But there's an ignorance about, hey, you're also talking about our brothers and sisters. Right. Like, you're trying to talk about oppressive natures, and when the gay community wants something, they get it. That's not us.
No, that's not us.
That's not us, bruh.
Yeah.
That's what's being missed. And you can bet when he sits down with the trans community to talk, I'm sure there's not gonna be a bunch of faces that look like us.
Right.
And so then once again, we're silenced. Our voices are not heard. And I'm not trans, I'm a big old butch. But I feel strongly about that. If one of us goes down, we all go down.
I'm a man in a dress, but I definitely feel strongly about I feel very strongly about it because I feel
love that.
I do. And I always will. I know some of the most beautiful transgendered women, and I'm not just talking about their exterior, I'm talking about their hearts. Will give you the shoes off their feet, will feed you, will clothe you, will take you in. And they're basically unsung heroes.
I agree. Thank you.
Being murdered by their own, mind you.
Yeah.
Being murdered by their own.
Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. We got to do better.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put a period on that, and I'm going to shift gears and ask you, so what are you looking forward to next? What's your goal?
You're gonna be really shocked. Okay. So this has been my goal since the whole thing even started. I'm talking 20 years ago. I want to move. The next thing on the target for me is moving my grandmother and I to Las Vegas because Las Vegas is a show town. And I also don't like the Pennsylvania weather, the 4 seasons. It does take a toll on me. Like you said, it does mental health wise, it takes a toll on me, all this darkness and cold, and I don't want it anymore. So we're supposed to move next year to Las Vegas. And once she is stashed there, I will then start to call on my connections to get my business and move my business to France. I want to live in France. I belong in France. I am a huge Josephine Baker fan. I went to France the first time because of Josie Baker, and I loved it. It is exactly where I belong. It is what I am working for. It is why I work so hard, because I belong in France. So I have all this music, I have all this stuff that I've created, all this intellectual property, and I want to go to France. And that's what I'm working on.
That fits so much. I can see that for sure.
Yes, I left my heart there the first time I went.
I can see that.
Yes.
So I want to know, what is Cybergirl doing to change the narrative?
Okay. Cybergirl, actually, I chose that name because it actually is one of my songs. My song is called Cyber. But in my music, especially, I like to push envelopes. So the point was, okay, so what was that? I want to say back in 2008, 2009, I was not fully full-time entertainer at that time, working and pulling in money. So what I had to do was I had to go get another job. So when I went for the job, I had to pick what job I wanted. I didn't want to work at the grocery store. I didn't want to work at Home Depot. I didn't want to work in, different things. I didn't want to do that. I needed something that allowed me the freedom of being able to run to New York or run to DC or run to different places. So I saw an ad in the newspaper, and it says you're gonna laugh because you know what this is. It says, we are looking for phone actresses.
I sure do.
So I was desperate, and I called the number, and I asked the questions. Now, mind you, I've always had a light voice. Right now I'm hoarse, so it's a little husky, but usually it's higher. So I got on the phone, and I'm asking them questions, and they're telling me, oh, you have to come for an audition and, different things. And I'm getting all the information first. And then I said to them, I have one more question for you. And they were like, sure, sweetheart, what's wrong? I said, do you hire men? They said, well, we occasionally hire men, but to tell you the truth, men just don't really have the ability to carry what we need vocally. I said, well, I'm a man. And she said, no, you're not. She said, baby, I've been in this business 25 years. If you were a man, I'd be able to tell. I said, madam, I am a man. She said, if you come down here tomorrow to orientation and you are a man, you will not even have to go through orientation. I will hire you on the spot. I said, where's the address? She gave me the secret location. And I went. I got hired on the spot. I was a phone sex agent.
Love it.
I was a female phone sex agent for 2 years.
Wow.
But what I want to also put a pin in right here is I rarely spoke to any Black men. I spoke to a lot of men that were Caucasian. And I'm going to say this, the highest volume of calls that came into our center were for transvestites and transsexuals. But I had to be well-versed and play everything. Fantasy girl was the regular call. Then I had to be a dominatrix. Then I had to do this. I had an Asian accent. I had a British accent. Like, what I liked about it was that my boss, she died of cancer, colon cancer. But before she died, she made it a psychological in-depth study. We had to learn about men, and we had to learn about these different areas. And my thing is, me being an LGBT plus member, I didn't even know all that I learned, studying and researching for the job. I realized and learned more then. And I also learned that the world was actually looking for me. I
love
that. Oh, honey, you're exactly what we want. That was the message that I got from the men. And so it didn't matter what men said to me in person, because I knew y'all called the line. I know what y'all want. So, but it gave me a confidence to do this. And like I said, I went viral. First time week I went viral.
I love it.
I talk to 21 million likes a year, 70 million people a year. Yeah, I've been good. Good.
So you what you represent is how the narrative can get changed, and I respect that. I respect that. So tell us where people can find you. I'm going to wrap this up because we've been doing this a long time now.
No problem. I am one-stop shop, thequeenofshade.com.
Perfect.
The Queen of Shade, all one word, thequeenofshade.com. It'll take you to everything I do. It'll take you to all my music, my albums, all my social media, ways you can donate, give, help me out, all kinds of stuff. It's all there, thequeenofshade.com.
Well, Queen, it has been a pleasure for both of us, right, Suze?
Yeah, I enjoyed.
Oh my God. And I could go back on every question. I was riveted. But when you said you were going to Vegas, I wanted to ask you if you ever thought of doing a residency, because you should.
Get this. I wanted, that was the point. But I knew I had to get my bones about me. You can't just get a residency being a nobody.
Exactly.
So, being a nobody. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to move to that town because I could get work there. If they needed someone to sing or do something on the way to a residency.
Getting in. You got to get in.
Yeah.
You got to get in.
Paris is where I really belong.
I can hear that. I can hear that. Well, listen, Queen.
I've been burned by the Hollywood entertainment industry here too, and the record industry. I'm one of those ones where I learned early through the hard lessons that no, you need to own your property, your own intellectual property. Right. You need to do all of that. So.
But also you need to follow your heart, Queen. You need to follow your heart.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what your heart's telling you.
And Paris is please. My grandmother says it, like even my therapist says it to me. She says the first day you set foot back in Paris, it's going to be a very emotional day, because I had to leave because of my mental illness. It was right when I was starting to come into public light as a model. I had to leave and come home, and it was so horrible the way that it happened. I'm in the hospital there, and socialized healthcare. I didn't get a bill. They took the best care of me. They took the best care of me I've ever been taken care of. They took the best care of me. But I had to come back here, and I remember coming back here, and I literally died. I died. It was just like, oh my God, I'm back here. But the divine had
well, you're on your way.
Listen, I want to emphasize how much we appreciate your vulnerability, your self-disclosure, your willingness to jump at the chance to come on right away. You gave me no problem at all. Right. I didn't have to beg you. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate you. I see you. And, I just think you're awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this opportunity being here. I love how professional it is. I love how, I like when people handle me the right way. When we as entertainers, or intellectual entertainers, we go to people and we want them, we want to be handled the right way. That's what we're fighting for in the business, is being handled the right way. And people always let us down. But you guys, I have to tell you, you've handled me very well tonight. And I appreciate that. You made me feel so special.
You are.
So special. And I truly appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity of having me.
Absolutely. It's a blessing. So you have to promise to come back.
Oh, I will. Oh,
all
yeah.
Right. I make sure of that.
You know me, bipolar type 1 therapy. I'm a creature of habit.
Wait, one last question though. What's your birthday?
September 29th, 1982. I just turned 39 years old.
Happy birthday.
I'm a Libra.
All right, Queen.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.